AITAH for banning my mother-in-law from Thanksgiving dinner. The short answer is yes, I am banning her, and the truth is I had to do it. She didn't just annoy us. She actually somehow legally transferred our house deed into her name. I found out yesterday. My entire world is shattered. I walked a lot that morning. The cold air hitting my face felt like a slap, trying to process the sheer audacity of what I'd read. The assessor's letter burning a hole in my pocket. I kept replaying the last few years in my head, searching for the moment I missed the warning sign. We planned this Thanksgiving for months. My husband, bless his naive heart, thought this year would be different.
He actually said, maybe she's changed, honey, just one dinner. Changed?
She's a master manipulator, a woman who weaponizes kindness. My stomach twists just thinking about her smug smile across our table, a table in our house that apparently isn't ours anymore. What would you even do in my shoes right now? Is this even legal? I need answers. Let me know what you think in the comments. It all started subtly, or so I thought, about 2 years ago. Little comments about our decorating choices, suggestions about how we should manage our finances, then suddenly, an insistence on helping with our mortgage paperwork. She'd show up with files, talking about refinancing rates, claiming she had an old friend in title insurance who could save us a fortune. Red flags, I see them now, waving wildly in hindsight. I dismiss them as typical mother-in-law overreach. She's wealthy, overly involved, and always has to be the hero. My husband always defended her. She means, well, she's just a bit much. A bit much? She was systematically dismantling our lives. She was so insistent on seeing certain documents, especially the power of attorney forms, claiming it was just for emergencies in case one of us was incapacitated. I just went along with it, busy with work, raising our 2 kids, trusting my husband's judgment about his own mother. Foolish, so incredibly foolish. The discovery was accidental. A misplaced letter from the county assessor's office. My husband and I were cleaning out the junk drawer, the one place where important mail goes to die. And there it was. It wasn't addressed to us, not exactly. It was addressed to her at our address, referencing a property transfer. The date was 3 months ago. My hands shook so hard I almost tore the envelope in my haste. When I read the attached documentation, a copy of the recorded deed, the world went silent. Our names were gone. Her name was there, big and bold, as the sole owner. She owned our home. Our sanctuary. The place we built our life was now legally hers. I confronted my husband. He was devastated, broken, pacing the living room floor we no longer owned. He couldn't believe it. He called her, screaming, the phone pressed hard to his ear, demanding an explanation. She hung up on him mid-sentence. No explanation, no apology, just silence. The kind of silence that screams guilt and cold calculation. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. The turkey is thawing in the sink. The cranberries are waiting their fate. But how can we sit there, pretending, when she has stolen our very foundation? How do I explain this betrayal to our children? That grandma, the sweet old lady who brings them gifts, just took our home. The thought of her walking through our door, knowing what she's done, makes my blood run cold. My husband says we'll fight this, legally, first thing Monday morning. He's trying to find a lawyer now, frantically calling his old contacts. But what if she did this perfectly? What if this theft is permanent? I feel a creeping sense of paranoia now, a chilling realization that if she could pull off a stunt this massive, what else has she been doing behind our backs? I remember my husband's cousin, Richard, a financial advisor who had always been wary of her involvement in our lives, once warned me about her aggressive nature during a family crisis years ago. He said she always finds a way to benefit from other people's chaos. I need to call Richard. I need to know everything he knows about her financial activities, especially one particular scheme. This house is just the beginning. The call to Richard, my husband's cousin, became the most important call I've ever made. I spoke in hushed, urgent tones, describing the deed transfer, the legal paperwork, the terrifying silence from my mother-in-law, and the upcoming, now ruined, Thanksgiving. Richard didn't sound surprised. That lack of surprise was a new, gut-wrenching betrayal all its own. He started by confirming my worst fear. This deed transfer, if executed with a legitimate power of attorney and proper notarization, even if secured through manipulation, is incredibly difficult to immediately overturn. He told me that our first step Monday morning must be filing a police report for financial fraud, not just talking to a civil lawyer. But then he introduced the complication, the massive setback that made my blood run cold. He reminded me of the suspicious overseas scheme last year. It wasn't just my husband and me. He explained that my mother-in-law had pressured nearly the entire family into investing in a supposedly exclusive, high-yield private equity fund based in a small, politically unstable European country. She pitched it as a legacy investment for her grandchildren. I remember the fancy brochures and her insistence that we had to act fast to secure our spot. My husband and I sunk a substantial portion of our savings into it, trusting her supposed financial acumen. Richard, who is actually a licensed financial advisor, refused to invest and explicitly warned my husband about the fund's extremely opaque structure and non-existent regulatory oversight. My husband dismissed his concerns then, citing his mother's track record of always knowing the best investments. Richard then told me the fund collapsed 3 months ago, almost the exact time the house deed was transferred. The company is now under investigation, but all the money is gone. My mother-in-law, however, has been oddly silent about the whole mess. She never mentioned the collapse, never offered condolences for our loss, or even acknowledged the money disappeared. She just kept inviting herself over for dinner, talking about the menu for Thanksgiving. This silence, Richard said, was key. He suspects she somehow pulled her own money out just before the fund collapsed, perhaps using her insider connections, but not only that.
He thinks the house transfer was a direct maneuver to protect
the house from being considered an asset in any future civil lawsuit related to the collapsed investment, maybe one she saw coming. The complication is that if we accuse her of fraud for the house, she can turn around and claim we are just trying to recoup the lost investment through another route, muddying the waters and making a clean legal fight almost impossible. Richard's words, "She's always 2 steps ahead, she never loses," echoed in my ears. I felt a surge of panic. It's not just the house. It's our retirement savings too. This woman is systematically stripping us bare. I looked around our kitchen, at the piles of half-prepared Thanksgiving food, and a sudden, terrible thought hit me. The deed transfer was 3 months ago. The fund collapsed 3 months ago. She has been planning the destruction of our lives for months, and now she expects to sit at the head of our table tomorrow and eat our food. The sheer arrogance is astounding. We decided, my husband and I, that the ban was absolute and immediate. We sent her a concise, lawyer-vetted text message stating that due to a serious breach of trust, her presence at our home was no longer welcome, now or ever, and that all future communication must go through our legal counsel. We didn't mention the house or the fund, saving that for the formal legal action. Her immediate 3-word reply was the mid-video cliffhanger that shattered my composure. "Enjoy your jail. Enjoy your jail." Those 3 words from my mother-in-law felt like a punch to the stomach. My husband was furious, immediately calling the family lawyer, but the lawyer, who handles corporate law, couldn't figure out the cryptic threat. I, however, had a horrible feeling that this wasn't just a threat. It was a veiled warning, a piece of a puzzle I hadn't fully assembled yet. I rushed back to the document drawer, pulling out every piece of paperwork she had ever asked us to sign. Mortgage forms, investment documents for the collapsed fund, and the power of attorney form that had given her the legal leverage to steal our house. As I reviewed the power of attorney document, a tiny, almost invisible detail finally registered. The witnessing signatures were a blur, but one name stood out, Michael Jones. My husband gasped when I pointed it out. Michael Jones was the name of the notary public, the supposed independent witness. But Michael Jones was also the maiden name of my mother-in-law's deceased mother. My mother-in-law had often joked about having an estranged cousin named Michael Jones, a distant relative she'd never met, who lived in another state. This notary was real, but Richard, the cousin, confirmed he was almost certainly a fake or at least compromised. This detail, combined with her jail threat, led me to a terrifying realization. Twist 1. The suspicious overseas scheme last year wasn't just an investment. It was an illegal money laundering operation. Richard confirmed that the fund's sudden collapse was triggered by a federal investigation into illicit financial activities. My mother-in-law was not just an investor. She was an active recruiter, using family money to give the scheme a veneer of legitimacy. Her threat wasn't about the house. It was about the investment. She was implying that if we pursued the house fraud legally, she would implicate us in the overseas scheme, claiming we were fully aware of the money laundering and were equal partners, all because our names were on the investment transfer forms she made us sign. The house transfer was her insurance policy, a way to liquidate her biggest asset before the feds could seize it, and the jail threat was her way of keeping us silent. She was playing a highly illegal, multi-level game. But wait, there was more. I remembered the incident with the family heirloom, Grandma's locket, that disappeared right after she visited. It wasn't just any locket. It was a unique 19th century silver piece, with an inscription on the back detailing its history and sentimental value, passed down through 5 generations. My husband had been devastated when it vanished, assuming it had been accidentally misplaced during a party. He'd never connected it to his mother. Now, with the deed transfer and the investment fraud exposed, I felt compelled to investigate the locket's disappearance. I remembered a strange conversation she'd had with a high-end antique dealer on the phone a few weeks after the locket disappeared, a conversation she quickly ended when I walked into the room. I searched her name and antique dealer online. Nothing immediately came up. Then I tried Michael Jones, an appraiser. Still nothing. Finally, I searched the unique inscription on the locket. The results were immediate and shocking. There was a recent auction listing, less than 2 months old, for a locket matching the exact description and inscription. The seller's name was listed as M. Jones. Twist 2. She didn't just steal the locket. She used her fake notary's identity, Michael Jones, the same name on the power of attorney, to sell the family heirloom for cash, completing her trifecta of financial and emotional abuse. The money from the sale, a substantial amount, was likely used to pay off whoever helped her fake the power of attorney, or was her share of the investment scheme's illicit profits. The two twists converged perfectly: the name Michael Jones, the fake witness, and the alias for selling stolen goods, was the thread connecting the house theft, the money laundering, and the locket's disappearance. She was not just a manipulative mother-in-law. She was a career criminal who had been hiding in plain sight, using her own family as her personal bank and shield. The realization that my mother-in-law was not just a drama queen but a master criminal was a chilling, life-altering truth. We immediately called Richard back, relaying the Michael Jones connection and the locket's auction listing. Richard's tone shifted from cautious to grave. He advised us to take all the documents, the assessor's letter, the power of attorney form, the investment scheme paperwork, and the locket's auction listing to the federal authorities first thing Monday morning. The money laundering aspect and the interstate theft of the locket elevated the case beyond a simple family dispute over a house. The Thanksgiving dinner, of course, was canceled. We explained to our children that Grandma was sick and couldn't come, a white lie that felt like a painful necessity to shield them from the ugly truth. We spent the day clearing out a safe deposit box, securing our remaining valuables and what was left of our savings. The atmosphere in the house was heavy with a mix of dread and resolute anger. My husband was quiet, a man utterly destroyed by the betrayal of his own mother, but he was no longer naive. He was focused, determined to fight for our home and our future. He finally understood the depth of her sickness. We are facing a protracted legal battle that will drain us emotionally and financially, but we have a strong case built on evidence, not just accusations. The house ban was the first necessary step, a line in the sand that said, "No more." It wasn't about punishing her with exclusion from a meal. It was about protecting our family from a predator. The emotional reflection that followed was brutal. I realized that my own passivity, my tendency to defer to my husband's judgment regarding his mother, had enabled her abuse. The constant feeling of being overly careful around her, of walking on eggshells, was not just about personality differences. It was a primal response to a dangerous person. I will never again mistake manipulation for overzealous mothering. I will never again be afraid to challenge someone who insists they are only trying to help. We are now financially vulnerable, legally entangled, and emotionally scarred, but we are together and finally we are awake. The thought-provoking conclusion I've come to is this: sometimes, the most dangerous people in your life are the ones society expects you to love unconditionally. Family ties do not grant immunity from criminal behavior, and the moment a family member treats you like an asset to be plundered, they forfeit their right to a seat at your table. This Thanksgiving, we ate pizza on the floor of our living room, the room she technically owns, and we felt more like a family, a unit, than we ever have when she was present. The turkey in the freezer can wait. Our priority now is justice and survival. I've filed the police report. The federal investigation is underway. The court date is set. The final question I want to leave you with, now that you know the whole story, is this: what legal advice specific to property fraud and money laundering should I be demanding from my lawyer right now?